begin in Nigeria, where the Socio-Economic Rights Accountability Project, SERAP, has called on President Bola Tinubu to swiftly overturn the unlawful ban imposed on 25 journalists and media outlets for reporting on activities at the presidential villa. SERAP emphasized the importance of journalists freely carrying out the constitutional responsibility of holding those in power accountable. The organization's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, signed the letter urging President Tinubu to publicly instruct presidential villa officials to reinstate the accreditation of the affected journalists and media houses, ensuring a transparent and open environment for reporting. Joining us this evening on the conversation is the Deputy Director of SERAP, Kolawole Oluwadare. Kolawole, one welcome to you, and thanks for joining us on the conversation.
Good evening, Benga. I'm happy to be here, as always.
Glad to have you join us. Now, Kola, can you explain the background and context of the recent ban on media houses and journalists from covering the presidential villa in Nigeria? What reason was given by State House officials for this ban?
Thank you, Benga. The context for these will be what we've also had in the media, which has been the action itself, which was little reported, and then the reasons, which are more or less excuses given by officials of the State House for the ban of about 25 journalists and media houses from covering activities at the State House. And the reasons that have been given are more or less some aspect of security breaches and reasons, and calling the bloated figures of media houses and journalists covering the State House. Those were the reasons adduced by the officials of the State House. But of course, these reasons do not satisfy the requirement of the law, neither do they fall within the factual context that would amount to a breach of the fundamental right of freedom of expression. And that's how we've taken this step to write to the President to exercise statutory obligations, duties to ensure that that ban is rescinded. And these journalists and media houses will be able to carry out their statutory duties and do their jobs to inform Nigerians about the happenings at the State House insofar as it affects the governance in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Kola. Now, what specific actions prompted your organization, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, to address President Bola Tinubu in this matter? And you've also issued an ultimatum for him and presidency officials to reverse this decision. And how does SERAP view the ban on journalists and media houses? Are there implications of such actions on press freedom and accountability?
Of course, these kind of actions do not only impact on those individual journalists and the media houses that they represent, it impacts on all Nigerians who rely on these media houses for information about what is happening in Nigeria. Understanding fully well that the State House is the seat of power and it's the center of all things governance in Nigeria. And that also means that the president has to really be the head of governance. He's responsible for everything that happens within the country, either through himself or vicariously to the officers he has appointed. But that is why we've taken this step to write to the president. It's happening right at his doorstep, as it were, at the State House, where he does not reside. He resides in that State House, but he also carries out the administrative functions of his office in America. So he has statutory powers, the mandate and the obligation to ensure that this should have been done in the first place. But since it has been done, he can exercise statutory powers to ensure that this action is rescinded. Understanding fully well the role that the media and the journalists play in governance in Nigeria. And we see this as an infraction to press freedom of expression of Nigerians generally. And this is just one of the series of actions that we've seen in this administration that can have a chilling effect on objectivity, wide reporting, and generally freedom of expression, not only guaranteed by the Constitution, but also treaties and conventions that Nigeria has ratified, including the African Charter of Human People's Rights.
Now, Kola, looking at this from a legal perspective, you've talked about, my last question was on the implications of such an action. You said, it's infraction to the press freedom and freedom to report freely. Now, let's look at the Constitution of Nigeria. Nigeria is a constitutional democracy. Could you elaborate on what the constitutional duty of journalists and media houses are to hold those in power to account? And how does this relate to this current situation at hand?
Thank you, Benga.
And I also want to know if the ban is on certain personnel that work for the media houses, or it's a carpet ban on the media houses.
Our findings show that it's a carpet ban on the media houses, understanding that those who serve in the State House, represent those organizations. So it is not about them individually, since they are not there in their personal capacity, they are there representing the media houses that they work for. But it would be immaterial anyway. If it was individual or against the media houses, it is still an infraction of the law and an infringement of the right of freedom of expression. And we need to contextualize that from the legal frameworks that guide this instance. And two provisions of the Constitution comes to mind regularly. That is Section 22 of the Constitution and Section 39 of the Constitution. Looking at Section 39 of the Constitution, that provides for freedom of expression. And freedom of expression means that right, it's a two-pronged right. It is the right to receive and the right to impart, which is why we can have conversations such as this. I can hear you. I can hear your opinions. I can also voice my opinions, and people will also listen and react. And that's the fundamental aspect of freedom of expression. And so Nigerians rely on media and journalists who are in the State House to get information from what is happening in this country. It's a critical aspect of governance. And so relying on this, of course, all of us cannot be in Asura, which is why these media houses are there to facilitate our rights to freedom of expression. Not fully well that the Ministry of Information, declaring the President himself, addresses the press from time to time, giving them information that they should in turn relate to Nigerians. And the news of journalists and the function of journalists is so important that Section 22 deals specifically with the statutory duties of journalists. And it clearly provides that journalists, media houses will have that as that statutory obligation, not only to inform the public, as it were, on the fundamental objectives of governance, but also hold government to account. And so by informing the citizens, they are performing that dual role. Not they are informing citizens of critical aspects of governance that they happen from day to day or time to time, but they are also using that means to ensure that those in public offices are held to account within the framework of the various laws that guide the conduct of the office. So that shows the importance of journalism, free press, and freedom of expression.
Now, Kola, what efforts, if any, has your organization, SERAP, undertaken to engage with the government or relevant authorities regarding the ban on media coverage, this current ban, and issues that have to do with freedom of press in the past?
And this letter is one of the many advocacy initiatives that we've taken from time to time to ensure that government toes the lines of democracy, the rule of law, pardon me, as part of our practice of democracy. And we've seen various infractions of government, bordering on self-censorship, on acts of intimidation, the unlawful use of laws to guard the free press. So we've seen this another one of those infractions. From time to time, we issue public advisories, including open letters to the president to provide a context and a request as matters of public interest for him to take action on. This is one of those that we've done in the series, and one would expect that these kind of advisory is what the president should take on. They can please give directives to ensure that this ban is rescinded and those journalists can do their work, and also give a guarantee of non-repetition. This shouldn't have happened in the first place, and to ensure that it should not happen again. We do these kind of initiatives from time to time as part of our own role as citizens to ensure that government keeps its side of the bargain, educate the citizens, and ensure that citizens participate actively in governance. And we are very hopeful that this does not lead to another round of public interest education if the government, the president in this instance, toes the lines of reason and the rule of law.
Thank you very much. Kola, I'd like to bring in Raymond Osho into the conversation. He's a political analyst. A warm welcome to you, Raymond, and thanks for joining us on the conversation. Hello, Raymond, are you there? Okay, we seem to have some connection issues with Raymond Osho, I'll just go back to Kola and we'll try to engage Raymond in the course of our broadcast. Now, Kola, what potential impact might this ban have on the quality and transparency of reporting and activities within the presidential villa? I know you did touch a bit on the duties and the responsibilities of journalists in reporting activities of the government, but looking at the transparency side and the impact, what effect would it have on the quality of reporting and transparency of activities within the presidential villa?
This would have effect. It would necessarily create a self-censorship. And this is very easy to understand. If, for instance, just for example, we have 100 media houses represented at the State House, and 25 were told to go for reasons that they believe are security reasons, what would you think would be the reaction of the remaining 75? Of course, it sent a strong message for them to be subjective in their reporting, to be careful. Careful in this sense means that they would have to be careful not to offend those who might have taken that decision. That itself affects the objectivity of their reporting and will have a negative effect on the millions of Nigerians who rely on their reporter, because we cannot at the State House. We rely on their reporter to give us feedback as to what is happening and also provide some kind of feedback in the media reporting that they do about the government. So this enforces some kind of self-censorship on the media reporting at the State House. And it also means that government becomes less transparent and less accountable. Fully well, like I've spoken earlier, that Section 22 of the Constitution provides a clear obligation on the media to hold government to account. And this is done by public engagement and public education, and by feedback from the people as to what their reactions are to actions of government. And these can only make governance. These can only make governance more opaque. It would mean that people will know less and less about what is going on in governance. People can, and then governance, as it were, becomes shrouded in secrecy. A lot of wrongdoing can go on in the dark without Nigerians being aware of it. This action of government can never be good for democracy.
Absolutely. Now, Kola, how does SERAP perceive President Bola Tinubu's role in this situation? Do you think is aware? And it does have a retinue of aides and media advisors who were once journalists, so they understand the importance of this matter. Now, your letter was addressed to Mr. President. Why is his intervention in this matter seen as significant?
I hope it is not to suggest that the president is not aware of this development. That would be strange. Why would something happen that the president, as it were, the president, and he would not be aware? So
I mean, the president, sorry to interrupt you, Kola, the president is dealing with so many issues, there's so many files on his table. Would you think that the ban on 25 journalists or media houses would be top of his agenda? We're looking at the economy, security, and other issues we're dealing with as a country.
So let's talk of the economy and security issues. Does not mean from the micro to the macro. And so while the president is not aware of what is going on in the State House, I'm supposed to be aware of what is going on in 35 other states and what is going on in 774 local governments. Enough for him to make critical decisions on matters of budget and security and economy, like you mentioned. It is only natural that he has these aides, and don't forget the job of the aides ministers and the retinue of aides he has, including governors, is to provide feedback to the president for him to take the most important decisions for which he will be accountable, as it were, good or bad, positive or negative. And that is why, if he is not aware, at least if he claims not to be aware, SERAP has written to him, and it was delivered today for context. Now he is aware, and now Nigerians are calling upon him to take his statutory duties very seriously and not in the public interest. And it will be very interesting to see how this plays out in the next 48 hours. Now, if the president claims not to have been aware of this fact, now he is aware, and now the ball is in his court, so to speak, and we are waiting for reactions. Nigerians look up to what the president's actions will be in this instance.
Thank you very much, Kola. Let's try to bring in Raymond Osho, political analyst, into this conversation. Now, Raymond, if you can hear me, Can you share any insights into the reasons given by the government for withdrawing accreditation of these 25 journalists and media outlets? Could there be any valid reasons to do so? And what do you make of this latest decision by the presidency?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. For me, of course, I've read the news on online, and what SERAP is actually wanting the president to do to lift the ban. But one thing is that there is freedom of the press, and that one is certain, and nobody can actually take that from every journalist, every practicing journalist in the country. No one can take that away. And what does it state? It actually gives every journalist the freedom, the free hand to practice anywhere in the country, of course. But what the president has actually, the decision of the president, I personally do not see anything wrong in that decision. It is the president has the right to decide of which media organization or which medium gain access to the villa. Of course, the president can also decide to streamline or to reduce the number of journalists or reporters or news organization, media organization that will cover activities at the villa. Of course, that is what I just want us to understand, or want the public to know.
What's your reasoning behind your statement that the presidency or the president has a right to reduce? What criteria would he use, and what informed your commentary?
Okay. Now, the president actually stopped about 25 media houses from covering the villa. Of course, the president. So what I feel could be the reason is because probably the president might want to reduce the number of journalists that will be covering, or that will be covering the villa. Of course, the president might actually trying to reduce the number. And the president has the right to say, okay, this the media organization that I want to cover might want to be covering the villa or not. And it's the one thing I want us to just understand is that President Bola Tinubu has not stopped. He has not deprived them. He has not stopped them from practicing as journalists or from operating in the country. He has only restricted them. He has only stopped them from covering the villa. That is just it. So there is nothing like he has not deprived them of the freedom. He has not. So there is nothing wrong with that, is it?
Thank you very much. Raymond Kola, I would like you to react to Raymond's statement. He said, Mr. President didn't stop them from practicing journalism in the country. He says, Mr. President, within his rights, has the right to reduce the number of journalists and say who he wants to cover villa activities and who it doesn't. From a legal perspective, what's your reaction to that? And do you share the same view with Raymond Osho?
Of course, I do not share the same view. I do not share the same view with Raymond. Two issues clear. One is, and this needs to be clearly understood, public officials are not in office to serve their personal interests. This is very clear in the oath of office they took, which is in 7th schedule of the Constitution. It means the actions of the president is not because he likes it, he wants it. The actions of the president must be in the public interest. It's not about what he likes. I can do what I like in the house. As long as it's within the context, it is lawful. But once I become a public officer, I cannot do what I like in the house. It must be what to be the public interest. It needs to be understood clearly. So public officer, from president to the councillor, must not do what they like in their interest. They must carry out actions in the public interest. So in this instance, the public interest of 200 million Nigerians clearly outweigh what the president thinks about calling the number of those covering the state house. Because these 25 media houses represent millions of people who rely on them to get information about what happens in government. And then secondly, talking about freedom of expression as a fundamental human right. The law is very clear. In the Constitution and other laws, particularly that pertains to fundamental rights, every action of government must be calculated towards enhancing those rights, not to limit those rights. So in this instance, can it be said that reducing the number of media houses covering the state house enhances the right of freedom of expression? So this is not about the right of freedom of expression of those individual journalists. They form part of the larger freedom of expression of millions of Nigerians who rely on them to get information from the state house. And I've got this fact by saying that it is not enough that we have Section 39 that guarantees freedom of expression. Section 22 is very clear. It creates a categorical imperative on the media to hold government to account. And can they do this by effectively informing the people who in turn will be able to make informed decisions about governance, being able to participate. And there is no way that the president, in this instance, either himself or vicarious to his aides, can be said to further the freedom of expression. Really, it cannot be so.
Now, finally, Kola, as we wrap up the conversation, what is the expected outcome or desired resolution that your organization, SERAP, hopes to achieve through its letter to President Bola Tinubu to reverse the ban? How will success be measured in this case?
Two things. It would mean that this present ban is rescinded and that these 25 media houses are allowed to cover the state house, unless, of course, they elect and not to cover the state house. Like we've seen other newspapers do, they have done so in the past. Secondly, it would mean that the guarantees of non-repetition, that this will not happen again. To send a clear message that this administration has the rule of law at heart, that this administration respects the media freedom and is ready to enhance the right to freedom of expression of Nigerians. That's the least we would expect in this instance. It is not about the private interest. It is not about SERAP. It is the public interest. And it will be in the interest of the government itself to ensure that people understand what this government is doing and they can interpret it positively.
Thank you very much. Kola, I'd like Raymond have the last say on this topic. Now, Raymond, the new administration is less than 100 days in office. But from what you've seen so far, the communication and the decisions that have been made by this government, what's your assessment of the level of freedom of press and respect for democratic processes?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I will still say that, of course, the president has not suspended or banned all the media organizations or all the reporters that are covering the State House. No. So whatever it is that that goes on within the house is still going to be communicated or disseminated to the public. That is very, very true. I understand he might have his reasons. Probably, he might be kind of I don't know. Maybe he has personal he has his personal reason or personal hatred. I don't want to use the word hatred for all those media organizations or something. But what I still believe, or that is still very clear, not just I believe, everybody knows that whatever goes on will still be disseminated, will still be communicated to the general public.
Thank you very much, Raymond. I wish we could go on, but we're fast run out of time. I'd like to say a big thank you to our distinguished guest, Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director of SERAP, and of course, Raymond Osho, a political analyst. It was a pleasure having you both join me on this topic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you're just joining, this is the conversation on News Central Television. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll switch gears to Zimbabwe, where President Emerson Mnangagwa has won a second term in office, and the opposition has rejected the result. We'll get into details of this and more when we return.